when we use the word mitosis, we're literally talking about just regular cell division. It really is cellular division of the genetic material within our cells. Now, mitosis is regular cell division. So when you use mitosis, we're talking about regular body cells, which are called somatic cells. So like you can see, I've cut myself here. I need to replace those body cells. So this is somatic cell division. It's regular body cells that divide. When we talk about cellular division, you literally need to understand first that before your cells can divide, you have to take your chromosomes, which are one set from your mother and one set from your father, and they have to duplicate. So I'm going to draw chromosomes from my mother in pink. So I have one set of chromosomes from my mother, and I have one set of chromosomes from my father, which I'll draw in blue. Now, when you talk about chromosomes and cells, when you have two sets of chromosomes, one from your mother and one from your father, your cell is considered to be diploid. This is a common thing that you're going to see me talk about, especially in the reproductive system. So this cell is a diploid cell. When you say that something is a diploid cell, di means two, you're saying that it has two sets of chromosomes. Obviously, my two sets of chromosomes, one comes from my mother and one comes from my dad, so I am diploid. The way we write this in a cell is we literally just write 2N. So I am a 2N individual. Now, before your cell can divide, it does have to duplicate itself in a process that we call replication. So when you replicate your cells, when you have DNA replication, you basically are copying your chromosomes. What happens is your chromosomes form a copy of themselves. So your mother's is going to have to copy itself. So it's going to look like this. It copies itself and it becomes what we call sister chromatids. Sister chromatids are having two of the same chromosome that are going to be linked together. You have to do the same thing for your fathers. So that's also going to happen. So they're going to replicate. So I'm just going to draw it right here. So what happens is it is literally going to replicate and you're going to have sister chromatids as well. So in the process of DNA replication, you have a copy of your chromosomes, but you only copied your mother's and your father's. No foreign chromosomes are going to be included in here. So even though we look at the cell, we still say it's two sets of chromosomes. One set from your mom, and the second set is from your dad. So you can see it's still 2N because it's mom and dad. You don't double it, it's still 2N. So for mitosis, the cell is going to divide into two. This is literally division of the cellular genetic material, and what you're going to form are two daughter cells, and your mom and dad's chromosomes, they're doubled, they're going to separate so that you end up with two new cells. So these are called your daughter cells. When we look at this cell right here, we literally can say this is the parent cell. The parent cell is going to be diploid. These are the daughter cells. Your daughter cells are the two new cells that you produce, and they have a set of chromosomes from mom and dad, so they're also considered to be diploid, 2N. They are genetically identical to the parent cell. So mitosis is pretty easy. Now, when you get to meiosis, meiosis is a special type of cell division which is going to produce sex cells. Now, these still have to undergo a form of replication, and we still have sister chromatids. So now I'm going to go over sex cell division called meiosis. So mitosis is somatic cell division. And since we're talking about the reproductive system, we are going over meiosis. Now, this is just a review. When we say meiosis, this is a special type of cell division. Meiosis is literally going to be a special cell division. That is going to be sex cell division. So this is going to produce gametes. Gametes are called sex cells. Gametes include sperm and egg. Now, since we are diploid, we have two sets, we cannot give two sets of chromosomes to our baby. So we have to undergo basically this special cell division to produce sex cells, to produce gametes and egg, which have half the number of chromosomes. So you do have to start with the parent cell. It's going to have to undergo the same DNA replication. So this is going to represent DNA replication. Now, there's some things that happen during DNA replication here, but you still are going to start with a 2N. 2N always means diploid, having two sets of chromosomes. Diploid, two sets of chromosomes. So you have one set from your mom, one set from your dad. You still have to undergo DNA replication. So your mom's chromosome is going to duplicate, and your dad's is also going to duplicate. Now, something crazy happens in meiosis that doesn't happen in mitosis, where your chromosomes get really, really, really close together. Now, something special and amazing happens whenever we talk about this, and I'll cover it here just in a second. So, we start with a 2N cell. Since it's going to do DNA replication, before we start meiosis, it is still going to be considered to be 2N. Now, your chromosomes are going to actually overlap each other, and this is special only to meiosis. Something happens right here. They actually overlap each other. So what happens is something that we call crossing over. Crossing over is basically a physical exchange that's going to happen between your non-chromosomes. So what happens is this piece right here is actually going to physically exchange itself, and you go through one round of cellular division. So this is going to have two rounds. We call this meiosis 1. And because you have a physical exchange, what happens is your chromosomes split, but they also have a little baby portion that belongs to the opposite parent. So on this side, you have your mother's genetic material, and on this side, a piece of your mother's genetic material attaches to your father's genetic material. So this one has both red and blue full-on chromosomes. So it's just DNA replication, so it's 2N. Now, when you undergo meiosis 1, even though you had this physical crossing over, this is going to cause genetic variation, but it's not full genetic variation. It's going to be a piece of this is your dad's and a piece of this over here is your mom, but you don't have a full piece of your dad's information or a full piece of your mom. So what happens is we say that this cell only has your mother's information, so we say this is 1N, and this one only mostly has your father's information, and this is 1N. So 2N literally means diploid, and di means you have two sets from different parents, so one set from mom and one set from dad. When you write the word 1N, you say that these are haploid cells. So haploid means you have half the number of chromosomes. So it's from either one parent. So we can now say that this one's dad and this one's mom. Now, it's still doubled. Yes, it's got two, so it's got to split again. So in meiosis 2, these split again. This is what we call meiosis 2. Now there's no more replication in between, and you can't split these. You have to split these because you can only give one chromosome from either parent. So when you say meiosis, you're going to actually produce 4 cells at the end that are all genetically different. So these would be egg and sperm cells. Now, if this didn't happen, this crossing over, you literally would have genetically identical brothers and sisters. You would look the same, you would talk the same mannerisms, the same personalities, everything. So whenever you talk about like genetics and Punnett squares, there's always going to be like 4 different ways that you can look. Yes, you might have some same characteristics, but there's 4 different daughter cells. So these are going to physically split. So the first egg, let's just say these are my eggs, will look like my mother. The next one will look mostly like my mother, but maybe it'll have some characteristics of my father, just a little bit. So the next one, way over here, my 4th egg is going to have only my dad's genetic material, and this one right here is going to be my dad's genetic material with a baby bit of my mother's. So literally, whenever you talk about producing gametes, egg and sperm, you don't want them to look alike. So if you go through and you say meiosis 2, this one only has mother's, dad. So we literally say it has half the number of chromosomes. So these are all still considered to be haploid, 1N. So in meiosis versus mitosis, you're going to produce 4 genetically different daughter cells, and they're all going to be haploid, having half the number of chromosomes. 4 genetically different daughter cells. And the way you have genetically different cells is you have to have this physical exchange. However, these daughter cells are going to be gametes. So meiosis is way different than mitosis. First, because there are 2 different cellular divisions. The next thing is you have 4 genetically different cells, and you have a physical exchange or crossing over, and that's what makes them genetically different. So mitosis, there's only 1 cellular division. You still have to have replication. There's no crossing over that occurs, and there's only 1 division, and that's why they become genetically identical. This one, crossing over, occurs once you copy your chromosomes. Those are going to divide, mom and dad's, that's what makes them haploid, and then those divide again, and that's how you make 4 genetically different cells. Now, we have 46 chromosomes, so these would have 23 chromosomes, so 23 from a man and 23 from a mom or a woman fused together, and that's how a new baby is formed. But you can only pass half of your genetic material. So you have 4 different eggs or 4 different sperm, and each one of them are going to have different genetic material from your parents. So that's really the basis of mitosis and meiosis, that you can watch this to help you understand.